Welcome back to the show, everybody. We got a good one for you. I put together a video today of some stuff you've seen, some stuff you haven't, and some of you are new and some of you have been around a long time. But I wanted to put it together in this manner to see if we could just, kind of keep our focus about where we're going, what the goal is, why we're here, and understanding and knowing what we hold, right? So while we do that and the price is crashing as fast as it can. Actually, it's rolling over to support lines that we've seen many technical analysts and experts out here in the space tell us to be aware about, and we are aware of them, and we'll keep watching those points. Right now, we're at 79 cents. Now, I'm going to release this video in the morning for you guys, so good morning to you all. But let's go ahead and get started and run through this stuff. Let's roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Digital Perspectives News, no spaces. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Hit the like and subscribe. We got a lot of people coming to the page. There will be some exclusive content there that you won't see anywhere else. And we will be doing a few lives occasionally from that page as well. So make sure you tune in for that so you don't miss it. All right, let's go ahead and get started and get right down into price right now. And this is just to show you the market's turned down a little further. We're in the 79 cent range. Now I'm going to release this video tomorrow morning, so make sure you check the price for tomorrow morning as well. But this is Friday right here, and I wanted to put this video together because it's been in my mind, and I wanted to get it laid out before I lose the process here. So a lot of you have been with the channel. I've showed you before. January 2020, the World Economic Forum released a policymaker toolkit for central bank digital currencies. You know that on page 17, it clearly expresses in here that not only is this the policymaker toolkit for all the countries that participate in the World Economic Forum, but this is what they use as their toolkit framework for their central bank digital currency in their respective country. It does show here that crypto asset designed for inter and intra-bank payments and settlement, JPM coin, and that's it, XRP. You better believe it right there. So now I'm going to move quickly through this just so we can roll through it here. So now this is the International Monetary Fund, which, by the way, the World Bank that is directly associated to the International Monetary Fund has just said no to El Salvador, that has just legalized Bitcoin or just made a move to legalize Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador. The World Bank associated with the IMF has said, no, we are not going to help with those efforts. It's a big hard no for the IMF. However, what is not a hard no for the IMF, as they looked over almost a year ago to the day here and released this report, the technical note of supervision of financial market infrastructures. Okay? Supervision of financial market infrastructures. Now you're going to see why this is so important. And truthfully, market infrastructures is what's so important here. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. But first, I'll just highlight for you just some of the sections, because there's many inside this document where they talk about the Financial Stability Oversight Council can designate things systemically important, and that could be card payment schemes considered to be retail payment infrastructures have not been designated systemically important. That is referencing, like the non-bank payment systems like Visa, MasterCard, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, all of these non-bank platforms, right, could get at some point a systemically important designation from the regulatory agency FSOC connected to the Treasury. That is highlighted here, as well as highlighting RippleNet, as well as talking about Visa, right? It's highlighting RippleNet is designed as a wholesale payment system without being subject to payment system specific requirements other than requirements posed by banks. There is, however, some limited scrutiny by FinCEN, Federal Reserve. There's no dedicated regulatory regime for new types of digital services. So there's another point made out of this, right? But they highlight the importance of RippleNet and how it could be used, right? That's in the IMF PDF file, just about a year old here. Then we come to recent events. Remember, I talked about market infrastructure and how important that is. And it's not just for cryptocurrency and this new emerging market. Market infrastructure conversation pertains to also the antiquated infrastructure that is our current system, the entire financial system, as it were. Whether we're talking about the rails of the NYSE, reminder right now that Bakkt is owned by the same parent company that owns the New York Stock Exchange. So Bakkt, B-A-K-K-T, cryptocurrency platform by ICE Intercontinental Exchange, the same owner of the NYSE. Interesting that they have built a platform in the crypto space. Makes me feel like they know something's coming too, right? So here we see that U.S. Congress held a hearing on the GameStop trading state of the stock markets. And this was a congressional hearing about the GameStop Wall Street Bets issue, which I think we all understand at this point was really about creating that narrative that retail investors were using social media to be able to commit market manipulation. That was the narrative, right? Now, regardless of whatever you feel about the interior of that narrative, that was the narrative. Markets are able to be manipulated by the retail investor now en masse through social media. Then there was the cyber attack on the U.S. oil and gas pipelines. Again, we're thinking market infrastructure, antiquated, right? And that happened. And then the FBI was able to track down that money through the back door and get that Bitcoin back from the ransomware attack, which is another point to be understood, that Bitcoin is not as anonymous as everyone believes. Then the meat producer, the largest meat producer, getting back online after a cyber attack that followed the U.S. pipeline attack. Again, market infrastructure, the fuel supply, the food supply, and our markets, our money markets, right? All about market manipulation and or cyber attacks. The point is, from stock markets to pipelines to the meat industry, we're talking about antiquated infrastructure. Well, looking here, remember this, Brian Armstrong went to meet with Congress back in May, and he met with D.C. officials, members of Congress, and heads of various federal agencies. Then there was this little clip from Gary Gensler, who we've only heard limited amounts from. And listen to this exchange. I just shared this clip the other day, but listen to it in the flow of the news we're looking at right now. Listen to this.
Gary, I wanted to pivot to the issue of crypto, something that you're very familiar with. You taught a whole class at MIT about crypto, and thus far the SEC has not gotten into the business of trying to regulate it. You've made some comments that you think that Congress ultimately will have to do it. What do you think, to the extent that it should be regulated? How would you do it? What are you thinking?
Well, so you're right. I was honored to teach not just one, but a multiple levels of different courses in financial technology and in cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. I think to the extent something is a security, the SEC has a lot of authority, and a lot of crypto tokens, I won't call them cryptocurrencies for this moment, but crypto tokens are indeed securities. The prior chair had indicated that. The prior SEC brought numerous enforcement actions to sort of bring some of those security or investment contract tokens into the rules. But there are some, like Bitcoin, if I can just focus on that, and that's about half of this $2 trillion asset class right now. It's a digital, scarce, store of value, but highly volatile. And there's investors that want to trade that and trade that for its volatility, in some cases just for it has lower correlation with other markets. I think that we need greater investor protection there. And we don't have a federal regime overseeing the crypto exchanges. So if an investor wants to trade on that Bitcoin, understanding it's highly volatile, highly speculative, but if they want to trade on that we have in place some investor protection. And that's what I was saying, I think, is a gap in our system right now.
A gap in the system right now. And that comes back to this. That's why I believe even before Gary Gensler was really confirmed, because this may have happened slightly before his confirmation, but this is why I firmly believe that Brian Armstrong, certainly not mutually exclusive to the point that Gary's making, was in D.C. to meet with members of Congress and various federal agencies, because Brian Armstrong is the CEO of Coinbase, right? So the reality is that his speech, all of this news about GameStop, pipelines, and meat producers, and now we're talking about consumer protection with the SEC for this volatile asset, which is being cited, Bitcoin, right? But really the crypto space in general. Then I want to go to here. This is really from just a few minutes ago today. So this is just from about an hour ago. And this is Yahoo Finance, and they're talking about serious foreign policy challenge from Senator Toomey, says about the rise in ransomware attacks on the U.S. This does require government response, but I would go very cautiously in a direction that would mandate specific approaches. So listen to just a piece of it. Well, actually, I don't have to play it because that's exactly what he says. So I'm going to not play that for you. But the reality here is it does address infrastructure again. That's what we're talking about. If you're on blockchain, right? If you're using crypto, and I'm not talking about Bitcoin that's got a backdoor here, but I'm talking about something like XRP or Stellar or something of that nature, to where you know that you're on a network that is built within compliance and governance of its own self, right? And especially the XRP ledger. So now coming to this is a reminder that, we just saw the House Financial Services Committee holding a hearing on CBDCs and cryptos. And inside of that, Maxine Waters has long been critical of cryptocurrency and its unregulated nature, and last month's cyber attack against the Colonial Pipeline, which paid a ransom in Bitcoin, sparked new discussions about regulating crypto. So then it comes about addressing this tech from the jump, right? If this stuff is being used for bad, we know that it also has the ability to be used for good. They're talking about really making the narrative to address the fact that we need a new infrastructure, new market infrastructure all the way around. This is a point right here by Congress just 3 days ago where they talked about much the same point, and about how the digital dollar approach and the fact that these agencies need to adopt a definition that accommodates this new technology within the definition and understanding of these agencies. Listen very quickly.
First, address the definition of legal tender in the U.S. Code to add digital currency to the current standard of notes and coins.
Make no mistake that El Salvador's news and what Paraguay are about to move forward and do, just like El Salvador with making Bitcoin legal tender, that this conversation has been escalated rapidly inside DC.
Second, clarify the role of the Treasury and the Fed Reserve in the creation and issuance of a digital currency. And finally, encourage the Treasury and Fed Reserve to initiate a digital dollar pilot program.
Which they already have done. And we know that they have said that they plan on engaging the public sometime this summer with some of what they're doing, and their pilot phases have already begun. Now, we'll keep an eye on that. This I played for you in this morning's video, or in one of the videos from this morning or yesterday, as you will watch it. But the reality is, I want to play this again because it really shows a confidence from the former 43rd treasurer to the United States Treasury, Rosie Rios, now on the board at Ripple, and about how much confidence she has in someone like Gary Gensler, regardless of the speak that we've heard in years prior, conferences, interviews, things of that nature, MIT, school recordings. the reality is Gary Gensler sees much of this space as digital asset securities in his mind. And I believe that she's mentioning here about framework, a regulatory framework, not just a market infrastructure, but a regulatory framework that really is there. Now, listen to what she says here.
Well, I think the good news about kind of structure is, there's obviously a regulatory framework that's in place.
There's obviously a regulatory framework that's in place. What does she know that we don't? What does she know that we don't? Is she referencing what Gary Gensler already has mapped out, but they're waiting for Congress to put something on the table and pass it? So then Gary Gensler from the SEC and CFTC can come together and release a unified framework against some legislation? Because that seems like what we would need. I don't know. Maybe something like the Blockchain Act of 2021, 2022. Isn't that what we need? I just went through a series of information to show us all how antiquated the system is, whether we're talking about trading markets or we're talking about oil pipelines and everything else. We need a blockchain technology act, just like we needed an act for the internet in the early days. Because before you can adopt the XRP ledger as money, before you can adopt Bitcoin as money, you have to acknowledge the protocol and the rails that all of this runs on. Isn't that what the internet is? A series of different protocols? And didn't we have like an internet act? I can't remember what the name of the act was for the internet in the early days back in the Clinton administration. And we did. I know that we did. We need a blockchain infrastructure act of 2021, 2022 in order to first start there, to have some of these protocols be recognized potentially as systemically important, or at least legitimized through the existence of legislation by the way that they operate, in order to really move forward and build on these protocols. And then we can have a conversation about this said tokens that represent the protocols. Let's keep listening really quickly.
We have a new administration. We have a lot of great people at the helm having a lot of great conversations about what happens to inspire innovation, not stymie innovation. And so, I adore Gary Gensler. I think he's going to do a fabulous job in not just in the crowdfunding space, but in the crypto space and all the other areas where I think you need level-headed people who have been in the trenches. He was obviously the chair of the CFTC in the past. He knows crypto. He was at MIT studying this. And so he, in my opinion, obviously in the Obama administration, he was also part of the Jobs Act legislation, among other pieces of legislation. So the regulatory framework that needs to be in place is really just beginning, in my opinion. Those discussions are happening now. And so you see a lot of, of course, you saw the news about, for example, El Salvador passing a law to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. That's a huge, huge step. So
it's also a huge catalyst to push the narrative forward and not allow the U.S. government or the SEC or congressional members to think that they have more time, right?
Having the government, the regulators, literally kind of, trying to get ahead of this, which is really hard because government doesn't usually lead; they usually follow, right? So they react. They react to innovations that are happening in the private sector. So I do think that in this administration, you do have a lot of good people at the helm, starting the conversations that needed to be started.
And there you have it. And that's Rosie Rios, now on the board at Ripple, former 43rd Treasurer of the United States, laying it down. And then I want to move and remind you, the promising thing here is that the hang up is here at home. I talk about this often, and I saw someone talk about it briefly in a comment under one of my videos. And one of the things that I found interesting, the point to make here is this, is that we know for a fact that, Ripple's customers and market regulators around the world are not confused about what XRP is to them. It's a currency. It's only here at home that it's an issue in the United States. I really look at the El Salvador situation as a catalyst to push regulators and government officials to really work very urgently and certainly with a sense of purpose to get something out here in front so we don't run the risk of having some kind of legal situation because of, these other currencies like Bitcoin and this, that, and the other floating around here doing whatever. Look, governments and regulators are not going for any of that. That's not even my opinion. They're not going for it. Matter of fact, the World Bank's not going for it because as soon as El Salvador said that they made Bitcoin legal tender, they stood up and said, oh, no, you don't. Well, you can, but we're not going to help you. And by the way, you owe us money and you should worry more about that than you should worry about anything else, right? It's funny because of the world and the progress the world is making, while the U.S. is still sorting through this melees of the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit, which is really pretty bad, and it's gotten really bad at this point. But what I will say is, regardless of the clarity around the rest of the world and the confusion that remains here in the U.S., I still believe that this is a globally coordinated effort. And the reason that I believe that is because the rest of the world does have clarity on XRP. And we know for a fact, we have seen enough data over the years that it is a benefit to use it. So why aren't they? At the end of the day, regardless of how much pain or suffering we all feel like we've been through to hold on and hold on and hold on. And I'm not trying to convince you to do one thing or another. I'm just saying here that with all this information, I'm finally starting to see the United States move towards a resolution that opens the door for clarity and eventually a unified framework for digital assets as a whole, let alone just XRP. The narrative is there. They're starting to put the working groups together. And you know how it goes in Congress. Things go very slow until they go very fast. So for me, at the end of the day, this is the rest of the world waiting on the U.S. to bring it on home. Because otherwise, why would they wait at all? That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget, Unstoppable Domains has a special right now. Every dollar you spend, you get 3 promo credit dollars. Who doesn't love that? And they got brand new domains for you. .x is so amazing. .nft and all the rest of it. .coin, .wallet, .bitcoin you can get. So it's all right there for you. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box and the comment section for really great specials and deals that are there. And don't forget about PureVPN, one of the many different layers of protection that I use to hide my anonymity online. Make sure you check them out. They usually have a sale going on, and I'll catch all of you on the next one.